friends, it's Selena. Today we're going to be talking about symmetry. So there's two main types of symmetry, reflectional and rotational.
So reflectional symmetry is when flipping something over a line still looks the same. That line's called the axis of symmetry. So we can see with this piece of paper, where if I fold it in half this way, then it's the same shape on both sides of that line. So this line is an axis of symmetry for this paper. If I fold it in half the other way, it's again still the exact same on both sides. So that's another axis of symmetry for this paper. But if I fold it on this diagonal line, they're different. They don't line up. So that means that's not an axis of symmetry.
So rotational symmetry is when something looks the same when you turn it at a different angle. So for example, this frisbee, if you ignore this pattern on the front and you turn it to any degree, it'll still be the same shape. So if I spin it, you can see it's got rotational symmetry.
All right, so here's our problem. We've got a square divided into these 8 triangular segments. We can see that it currently has horizontal, vertical, and diagonal lines of symmetry. It also has rotational symmetry at 90, 180, and 270 degrees. Remember that rotational symmetry has to be less than 360. So if I turn it another 90 degrees, that brings me back to the beginning. That doesn't count as rotational symmetry if that's the only way that it could be the same after rotating it. So if I color in 2 of these segments, use this blue marker, color in 2 of these segments, this one and this one, then now this square still has vertical symmetry, because if I flip these over, they're the exact same on both sides. But it doesn't have horizontal symmetry and it doesn't have diagonal symmetry.
So here's my challenge to you. How many different ways can you color in the segments with 2 different colors so that
it has only a horizontal axis of symmetry, it has only the right sloping diagonal line of symmetry, it has both horizontal and vertical symmetry, and it has rotational symmetry. Just a minor note, a coloring and its inverse count as the same coloring. They don't count as different things. So for example, if I flip the white and the blue segments in this, so if these 2 were white and everything else was blue, then that still counts as the same coloring as this one, because we're really interested in which segments are the same color and which segments are different colors. Here's a couple hints to the problem. You could try folding the paper along the axes so you can see which segments line up. So here I'm going to fold it this way, and then I can see that for the vertical line of symmetry, these 2 line up, these 2 line up, these 2 line up, and these 2 line up. That means that each of those pairs would have to be the same color to make it have vertical symmetry. Also, make sure there's not extra symmetry in the coloring. So for example, if I had these 2 colored in, now it also has horizontal symmetry, but it has vertical symmetry too. So that means that it couldn't be an answer to number 1, because we're looking for colorings where the only axis of symmetry is the horizontal line across the square.
if you want to print out the squares to color in, there's a link down in the description. Feel free to use as many or as few of the squares as you need. And if you don't have a printer or you want an extra challenge, try making the squares yourself. Here's some helpful hints on how to do that.
One way you can make these squares yourself, you can fold to line up the sides so that they're all equal. So for example, with this rectangular piece of paper, I can fold it into a square on this diagonal here, because I'm going to line up this side, the short side to the long side, and so I'll know where the short side needs to go so that I can make a perfect square. So then I can make a mark here, and I can cut this on this line, and then I'll have a square. And then from there, I can fold it here to get my other diagonal, and then I could fold it along the vertical and the horizontal lines also, so then I have my 8 segments. Another option, if you don't want to do a bunch of folding, is to find something to use as a reference. So I'm going to use this square-shaped box and this rectangular eraser that I've got. So for something that you know is already a square, it's pretty simple. You can take a marker or pencil or whatever you want and trace around your box. My box has a little bit of a lip on one of the sides, so it'll be a little bit off, but that's okay. Since we're looking for symmetry, we don't need everything to be 100% perfect for this activity to still work out. So here's my base square, and then I just need something a little bit longer to use to trace my segment lines. So I'm just going to use one of my pieces of paper from earlier, line up the diagonals. And if you want something more precise, you can always use a ruler. It's an option. But our goal here is really to get a nice visual of the symmetry. So it doesn't have to be 100% perfect. And then, if you don't have a square that you can use to trace things, you can definitely use something rectangular. So I take my eraser here. What's nice about the eraser is that it's got corners. It has these 90-degree corners on the edges. So I can trace around those. And then I can flip this over this way, so then I know how long I need each of the sides to be. And I can line it up in that corner again, trace the next corner, and then the final corner. And then again, I have a square that I can divide up into the segments. I like to do the diagonals first because you have a better reference point onto the corners of the squares, but it's really up to you. There we have it, a couple ways to make these squares yourself.